Have you ever stumbled across a story online that hits you so hard it doesn't even feel like just some random post? Today I was scrolling through Reddit and found a few stories like that. Way too real, way too creepy to ignore. I've got a feeling you're going to want to hear these. So, no more waiting, let's dive right in.
Story 1.
For several years, I worked as a call center agent. I spent my days calling people, trying to sell them various things. I'm sure all of you have received this kind of call at least once in your lives. A telephone operator, for example, trying to sell you a mobile plan. Let's be honest, we could all do without these calls. We've all felt that urge, myself included before I switched sides, to tell the guy or gal, try to push their offer to get lost. Very often, the person on the other end doesn't even have time to finish their introductory sentence before we've already hung up or blurted out, "I'm not interested, goodbye." I couldn't stand those kind of calls. Then one day, I received a job offer to become the guy who calls people all day. When I took my first calls, I realized something. Many people seem unaware that a human being is calling them. It's as if they think we're soulless, heartless robots incapable of feeling any emotion. I do exactly as I'm told. I follow the script given to me, and I don't decide whom I should or shouldn't call. As a result, I often got shut down, and not always very politely. That wasn't the only downside of the job. It was repetitive too. We kept saying the same thing over and over, and the days were long. There were, however, some positives. Whenever I managed to sell a subscription to someone I didn't even know from Adam to Eve, I must admit I was filled with a sense of pride. That didn't completely erase the inconveniences, but over time I got used to it. I had developed my little routines. Then, one day, a phone call turned my life upside down. This was about a year ago. That call terrified me. I lost sleep for several weeks. I had already encountered my share of oddities during my many years of loyal service at the call center. But this time I was seriously freaked out, to the point that for the first time in my career, I had to take several weeks off on sick leave. I was traumatized. It was a Friday, nearly at the end of my shift. It must have been around 7:30 p.m. We were nearing the end of our call list, so there were a lot of answering machines and quite a bit of waiting time between calls. I'd been waiting for 3 minutes when a new contact finally appeared. I began as usual. "Hello, this is Max from sales." The man on the other end of the phone interrupted me, telling me to stop immediately. Up to that point, nothing unusual. This happens often. I paused for a second to listen to what he had to say. Usually, people who say that go on to complain either about the calls or to insist that they aren't interested. But this time, he said nothing. I could only hear his heavy breathing. So I continued. "I'm calling you too." "Shut up, Max." My irritation began to mount. It was the end of the day, and although I was used to rude people, this was really getting on my nerves. You have to understand that as call center agents, we have strict guidelines. Not to talk down to our clients, and no matter what they say, we're supposed to remain polite and courteous. So even though I felt like telling that idiot to get lost, I simply replied, "Sir, I apologize if..." He cut me off again. "Stop calling me Max. I don't like it." "Sir, it's an automated system calling you. Perhaps you received a call from one of my colleagues." "No, I know it's you calling me all the time, Max." While speaking and listening to him, I checked the call history. I began to feel uneasy. He was right. It was always my name on the record. I had always sent him to voicemail. He had never answered before. This was the first time. To you, it might not seem strange at all, but I assure you it wasn't normal that I was always the one reaching this guy. On a call platform, there are several teams. In mine, there were nearly 20 people. The calls are distributed randomly by software among the available agents. Logically, my name shouldn't have been the only one showing up in the history. The system had already called him 8 times that month, and it was always me who got through, never one of my colleagues. I tried to reassure myself by thinking that perhaps the software was malfunctioning. It wouldn't have been the first time. The fact that my name appeared systematically must have been a bug, and the guy had no way of knowing that. The same number was always calling him, and that annoyed him. He wasn't singling me out specifically. "If we contact you, it's because..." He interrupted me once more. "I told you shut up, Tom." I was stunned. Max is just a pseudonym I use among many others. My real name is Tom. How could he know that? "I'm Max, sir." I tried to control my voice, I didn't want to let on how disturbed I was. "No, you're Tom, and you keep calling me. I don't like it. I'll make sure this never happens again." I wasn't quite sure I understood what he meant, whether he was actually threatening me. My eyes were fixed on his name as I tried to recall if I recognized it from somewhere, or if it wasn't just a bad joke from a friend who recognized my voice. But no matter how hard I looked, his name was completely unknown to me. He continued, "I know you call me from a call center in Northern England." That was true too, but I tried to console myself by thinking that Northern England was vague, and to my knowledge, several companies work in telemarketing. Except then he gave me the exact city and the name of the company where I worked. He even detailed my work schedule. I was supposed to be off the following Thursday, and he told me he would find me then. All I wanted to do was hang up. But you're not allowed to hang up on a customer. I still tell myself that if I had hung up, no one would have blamed me. It was an exceptional case. Instead, I sat there like an idiot, eyes glued to the computer, continuing to listen. "I'll make you stop harassing people. Your navy blue scarf will be very useful to shut your big mouth." Then he hung up. I was paralyzed. Needless to say, I was indeed wearing a navy blue scarf. I sat there doing nothing for a good 5 minutes, my hands trembling. My colleagues noticed that something was wrong and asked what was happening. Since the calls were recorded, my supervisor listened to the conversation. I still hoped it was a joke, that my boss would say, "It's nothing, don't worry." But instead, I saw him break down as the recording played. The police were contacted. I was interrogated to confirm that I truly didn't know who my caller was. An investigation took place, and afterward I refused to go back to work. My doctor put me on sick leave. I was placed under police surveillance, especially on that infamous Thursday when a man said he'd find me. Nothing happened that day, nor on the following days. The investigation led nowhere. They never managed to track down the guy. The number I'd been calling was no longer in service, and the name didn't match any current or former customer of the operator I worked for. Even now, I have no idea who that man was. I had to take medication to calm myself down. I was so stressed. I was forced to take sleeping pills just to get some rest. I kept having the same nightmare, the guy breaking into my home to kill me. Several weeks later, I managed to pull myself together and went back to work. I could have changed jobs. I might even have needed a change then, but I don't have any qualifications and I really didn't know what else I could do. The first day, and even the first week, went about normally. I was still anxious, but to a lesser degree than during my sick leave. Then, after several weeks, I had nearly recovered from that horrible experience. 2 months later, I was moved to a different shift, which meant I would be working for another operator. After a few days of training with new colleagues, we set off to make calls. 2 weeks after that, the nightmare began again. Around 6 p.m., a new contact appeared. It was under a woman's name. I began my pitch, and this time I was using the pseudonym Alex. There was a sigh on the other end of the line. Nothing unusual. This sort of thing happens quite often. I continued, presenting the purpose of my call. Fiber had been installed in her town. "Is that you again, Tom?" It was the same voice as before. I was petrified, unable to move or utter a word. How was it that I kept getting this psycho? It wasn't the same name. I was sure of it. I had been traumatized enough not to forget it. He continued, "I missed our appointment. You were too surrounded. For a brief moment, I even considered being lenient. But you've called me 6 times now, Tom. I'm not going to let this slide. See you soon." He hung up. I checked the call history, and once again, he was right. I had called him 5 times before today, and I had always sent him straight to voicemail. The nightmare was repeating itself. I reported it again to my superiors, and another investigation took place. But unsurprisingly, it led nowhere. It was impossible to trace this man. That very day, I decided to quit. I never set foot in a call center again. Weeks and months passed. I found a job as a sales clerk in a shop. I thought I was finally done with all of that when one day a block number called my cell phone. I answered automatically. "Don't think I've forgotten you, Tom. Nice leather jacket." It was him. I hung up immediately. He didn't try to call back. I thought I was going to faint from terror. How had he gotten my cell number? The most terrifying part was that I actually did own a leather jacket. He was out there somewhere, and he was watching me. I looked around. There were people everywhere. I was in a shopping mall. but no one seemed to be staring or watching me. I blended into the crowd, and once outside the mall, I ran to the nearest police station. I figured that if I ran fast enough, no matter where that guy was, I'd manage to shake him off. Once again, the police were of no help. It was impossible to trace the call. Of course, after that, I changed my number and even moved to another region, hoping that would be enough to escape that lunatic. I have panic attacks every time my phone rings. For a while, I even considered giving up having a cell phone altogether. It has been 5 months since that last call. Nothing has happened since. I keep trying to convince myself it was just a tasteless joke. Having changed my number and moved, I tell myself there's no way for that guy to find me. And yet, I'm writing all of this today because I need help. For the past 2 hours, my cell phone hasn't stopped ringing. It's a blocked number, and I'm too scared to answer. It's the middle of the night, and I'm too afraid to leave my home. I'm sure it's him, and that he's watching me from somewhere.
Story 2.
When people ask now if I'm an only child, I lie and tell them yes. Growing up, of course, I told them the truth. I have a brother named Mark. He's 6 years younger than me and my best friend. That was true then, and it's still true now. The difference is the world won't believe me anymore. There was a time when I tried to convince people, raise a stink about it, convince people I wasn't crazy. That landed me in 72-hour observation, and that almost cost me my life. So now I just lie. It's easier and safer. I've even taken to lying to myself. People can convince themselves of most anything, after all, and I have this feeling that me talking about it, even thinking about it, might help them find me again, maybe for the last time. This account will, if everything goes as planned, be the last time I will have to deeply think or talk about this ever again. I have no illusions that I'll ever believe the world is safe or sane again. How could I? But at least I might be able to float along the surface. A small leaf not making waves, trying desperately to not be noticed and pulled underneath. I should probably start with our lives growing up. They weren't anything remarkable. Our father worked for a security company. Our mother was a psychiatrist. We lived in a nicer than average neighborhood and probably lived nicer than average lives. Our parents were good at most things. They were good at their jobs. They were good neighbors, good friends. And they were really good parents too. That's really important for me to get across. They weren't perfect, and they were a little strict, but not in a mean or shitty way. Mark and I loved and respected them, and we knew they felt the same way about us. Well, I moved away for college. I legit missed home, and not just because of Mark or my other friends. Mom and Dad were my friends too, and most weeks I'd call them for a few minutes if I didn't manage to make a trip back to see them all. Mark was the same way. I was already working a job I hated by the time he was a freshman, and I couldn't help but laugh when we were talking on the phone one night, and I could tell he was homesick. I wanted to make fun, but didn't quite dare. It was too hypocritical, even if I was missing a chance to rag on him. Because I wasn't that different than him even then. I looked forward to holidays and weekends we could all get together, especially as time and life in general made those times fewer and farther between. By the time I was 28 and Mark was graduating college, I only got to see them all a few times a year. Mark was still going more regularly, and there was a part of me that was jealous of how close he'd stayed with them, even though I knew it would probably change for him over time, just like it had for me. They'd always invite me to stuff, of course, and they'd tell me funny stories about it, but they understood that I was far away and busy with work and day-to-day life. I'd already been planning on making a trip out to see them the next month when Mark called me one morning. That was already weird. Mark never called that early unless something was wrong. I knew he'd gone home that past weekend, so I wondered if something had happened or was wrong with Mom or Dad. Keeping my tone even, I answered the call. "Hey, Dumble, what's up?" A pause and then, "Yeah, hey, nothing too much. I have a final this afternoon, so I thought I'd do some laundry and call you." I snorted, faking cheer though my chest still felt tight. "Surprised your lazy ass is up this early. It's like before 10, dude." I let it hang there for a moment, and when he didn't respond, I pushed on. "Is everything okay?" I heard him let out a long breath on the other side, like he'd developed a slow leak. "I don't know, man. I've been debating calling you since I got back in the car and started driving back to school on Saturday. Mom and Dad, something isn't right with them." I felt myself frowning as I gripped the phone a bit tighter. "Like what? Are they sick or something?" "No. I mean, I don't think so." When he fell silent again, I prodded further. Are they fighting? Acting senile? Like, what's the deal? You're freaking me out and not giving me much to work with. Shit. Yeah, you're right. I am sorry. I don't know how to put it into words and not sound dumb or crazy. That's part of why I haven't called before now. I swallowed. Okay. I promise to not prejudge anything you say until I hear everything. Okay? And I promise to not give you any shit. Yeah, okay. Well, it started when I got there. Like, I didn't get in until after midnight, and I figure Mom would still be up, but usually Dad would be in bed already. This time they were both up and waiting. That was unusual, but so what, right? But from the moment I walked in, things were off. They were still nice enough. They said they'd missed me. They asked about school, that kind of thing. But none of it seemed genuine. It was like all the nice stuff and politeness and being friendly were just fake. Kind of like, have you ever walked on thick carpet when it's really cold? In her bare feet. I blinked. Yeah, you guess. What? It's like that. Like when you walk on that carpet, you can feel the carpet, sure, but you can also feel the colder floor underneath. It was like that. They felt cold underneath their questions and their smiles. Like strangers. Shit, Mark. I don't know. Maybe they had been fighting and just didn't want you to know. So they faked being happy, and that's what you picked up on. Yeah, maybe. But it wasn't just that. After I talked to them for a bit, I went to my room to go to bed. At that point, I thought they were acting weird, but I wasn't actively freaked out or anything. And I was really tired, so at first I fell right asleep. But a couple of hours later, I just woke up suddenly. I don't know if it was a dream or what, but when I woke up, I realized the house smelled different. Like, it had smelled that way since I got there, but I hadn't really registered it with everything else being weird until just then, sitting up in my bed. I could feel my heart beating faster, though I wasn't sure why. What did it smell like? I don't know. It was like a spicy smell. It didn't really burn my nose, but it felt like it was twisting its way up into my brain or something. It wasn't a good smell, or a normal smell. Okay. Did you ever ask? I'm not done with that yet. So I wake up, and I'm looking around even though it's super dark, and I'm smelling this weird smell, and I'm afraid. Like actually afraid like I'm a little kid. I don't know why or how, but some part of me is yelling like it senses danger. Instead of getting out of bed or reaching over and turning on a light, I just get quiet and still. Like very, very still. I may have even held my breath for a minute. I don't know why I reacted like that, but I did. And that's when I heard it. My palm felt sweaty against the back of my phone. Heard what? The sound of my door, like the latch? It was clicking. Someone was outside my door, had opened my door. Maybe that's what woke me up, I don't know. But they waited there, not moving or saying anything, until they thought I was asleep again. And then they closed it back. I mean, it was probably one of them coming in to say something and then realizing you were asleep and not wanting to bother you. His voice was trembling a little when he spoke next. Jake, my door. I started getting the habit in college, and I'm still in the habit now. I didn't even think about it until the next morning. But I always lock my door now, and I remember locking it that night. It was out of habit mostly, but I remember locking it. Do you fucking think Mom and Dad would do that? I held my breath a moment as I tried to think of some excuse or explanation. No, you're right. But I mean, what? Do you think someone else was in there? Like a burglar or something? I don't know, but I don't think so. I didn't leave my room the next morning until like 11, and they were both out in the living room waiting for me, trying to act like they should, but not quite pulling it off. I hung out for like an hour and then fake getting a call. A friend had an emergency, and I had to go ahead and leave. So, you really left on Saturday? Yep. You never leave until Sunday late. A shaky laugh, and then, nope. Fuck. Okay. So have you talked to them since then? Just a text to let them know I got back okay. I got a short response, but that's it. And I haven't pushed it. I don't really want to talk to them. At least not until after I talk to you. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, fuck, I don't know. Do you think I should talk to them? The fear in his voice was high and crackling when he responded. No. I mean, I don't want to tip them off that I noticed anything. Not yet, at least. I was hoping you could go back there with me. See if you see what I see. Tell me if I'm being crazy. I mean, I'm planning on going there in a few weeks, so... No, not that. Not that far off. I think it needs to happen soon. I don't want them to notice I'm not coming as much, and I'm not comfortable going until this is figured out. whatever the answer is. Plus, there's something else. I was about to remind him that I didn't have as flexible a schedule as him, and that I couldn't just drop everything for something so minor as he thought our parents were acting weird. But the tone of his voice caught the words in my throat. What? What's the other thing? I think they want you to come. They always talk about you and want you to come more, but just like everything else, it was different this time. They kept bringing it up about how you should come soon. We should both come and stay for a few days together. It didn't strike me as much at the time, but I think they meant it. I had the sudden thought that one of them was sick, cancer or something, and it was making them both weird. That they wanted us together to tell it all at once. I tried to keep my voice even. Yeah, sure. Let's go this weekend. I ran late, so I expected Mark to already be inside when I got to our parents' house. But when I texted him that I was only about 10 minutes out, he was quick to respond. Okay, I'm waiting outside in my car. I felt something grow heavy in my stomach. Seriously, what was this? He hadn't said he just got there too, just that he was waiting outside. And why wait at all if you're already there? A small voice whispered in the back of my head. Because he's scared of them. Clenching my teeth, I sped up a little. When I pulled into the driveway, my headlights cut across the house and parking pad, flashing on Mark's face, staring out at me from inside his car. Pushing away the voice, I parked and got out, meeting him in the space between our cars and giving him a quick hug. Hey man, so you really waited until I got here, huh? I tried to leave it at that, but couldn't quite do it. How long have you been out here? He looked pale and tired, dark circles under eyes that darted toward the house before lighting back on me. Like a couple of hours. I was worried they'd come out, but they haven't. I frowned. Are you sure they're even home? Mark glanced at the house again, licking his lips nervously. They're in there. I've seen them moving around. Well, shadows moving. I nodded, reaching out to give his shoulder a pat. Well, let's go in and see how they are, right? Like we talked about, I'm not going to call them out on anything, just watch and listen. Then me, and you'll talk about it. Sound good? He nodded slightly. Yeah, I guess so. I didn't hesitate and headed toward the front door. I could have grabbed my bag from the trunk, but the thought didn't even occur to me. I wanted to get this over with, see that everything was okay and that he was overreacting. But they weren't sick or crazy or, well, anything. Just our friends and parents, same as they'd always been. When the door opened, I felt something twist inside me. Mom and Dad were both standing there, smiling and laughing, watching us expectantly while ushering us through the door. It wasn't just that I'd never seen them open the door together other than maybe at Halloween, when they both dressed up for trick-or-treaters. It wasn't any one thing. It was everything. The way they moved, the look in their eyes. And Mark was right. There was some undersmell throughout the house that hadn't been there before. It was faint but there, spicy and a little sour at the same time, corkscrewing through the more familiar smells of home like a thin twist of barbed wire. Making small talk as we all went into the living room. I could barely hear what we were saying for the thudding of my heart in my ears. I looked between them, terrified that they could somehow hear the thunder inside me. But no, their eyes roved between me and Mark as they asked about work and anyone we were dating, and what was wrong with them? Their eyes were dead as an anglerfish, flashing this way and that, conveying nothing real except for some kind of terrible patience. I had to be wrong, didn't I? These were our parents, for fuck's sake, and even if something was wrong, we needed to... Stephen? Did you hear me? This was Dad, looking expectantly at me. Sorry, what was that? He nodded and smiled. No, I guess you're probably beat after that drive. Was just asking if you'd help us out in the basement in the morning. We've been clearing things out down there. Your mother has the idea to renovate and reclaim, as she puts it. Need the two of you to help finish it out tomorrow. I blinked and then returned his nod. Yeah, sure. That'd be fine. Standing up, I fought the urge to run. Somehow that sudden instinct scared me more than anything else so far. It wasn't fanciful or fueled by an overactive imagination. It was a base instinct that said there was danger here and I needed to escape. Instead, I swallowed as I wiped my hands on my jeans and forced laughter I didn't feel. I think you're right, Dad. I'm pretty beat. Mark, mind helping me get my stuff out of the car? I forgot to bring anything in with me. Mark sprang to his feet, nodding. I could tell he was as freaked out as I was, which made me worry they'd notice something soon if they hadn't already. We needed to talk outside and get our shit together before being around them again. Sure, man. He gave them a nervous glance. "We'll be right back." We were halfway to my car when I dared to speak in a low voice. "You're right. Something's really wrong." I saw Mark tense in front of me, but to his credit, he kept walking and didn't turn around. I know. I was worried and also hoping that would be normal this time, but it's not. He stopped at my car's trunk and glanced back at me. "What do we do?" I met his eyes for a moment and unlocked the trunk. "I'm going to stay and try to figure out what this is. I think you should go back. I can call you when I've had more time with them." He grabbed my arm, and when I turned to him, his face was set in a deep frown. "You're scared, aren't you? That's why you don't want me to stay." I wanted to lie to him, but looking at him, I could tell there was no point. "A little, yeah. I don't know why. Probably it's nothing. But maybe they've gone crazy or something. It sounds dumb, but that doesn't mean it isn't possible. People, even couples, do go crazy and hurt people sometimes. Well, it's not going to be anything like that. It may just be our imagination still, though I don't think it's that either. But whatever it is, I don't trust it. We have to figure it out and help them. But that doesn't mean we both need to be here." He was already shaking his head. "No, fuck that. They're my parents too, and I'm not leaving you alone with them. Not when things are like this. We both go or we both stay and watch each other's backs." I stared at him for a moment, again fighting the urge to leave. "Okay, we stay then. Lock our doors and block them too. And then we'll see what things look like in the morning." Handing him my laptop bag, I held on to it a moment, meeting his eyes. "You okay with that?" He nodded. "Yeah, it'll be fine. They're our parents, right?" I winced at the scraping sounds my old dresser made as I slid it over in front of the door. It was largely empty at this point, but it was still heavy and unwieldy enough that I half expected someone to knock on my door asking what I was doing in there. Once it was snugly against the locked door, I waited, breath held, and ears pricked up for any sound. Nothing. Letting out a shaky breath, I went over to the bed and pulled back the covers, checking under them before getting in. I could tell they had been changed recently, and they smelled decently fresh, but it was hard to tell anything for sure with that damned other smell everywhere I went. What was that? It didn't smell like anything I remembered ever running across before, but something about it still put me on edge. Then again, I could say that about so much at the moment. Everything was disorienting and strange, including sleeping in my old bed at 28, afraid of something coming to get me in the dark. Because that was the truth, wasn't it? I was afraid. I felt a stir of embarrassed irritation at the thought. Afraid of fucking what? My old house smelling weird? My sweet, aging parents? But my attempt at distracting anger died quickly at the thought of them that night, doing and saying all the normal things in abnormal ways, lost in some uncanny valley of feigned familiarity close. Enough to be intentional and wrong enough to be malign. That thought spun off into another. What if they knew they were off? They were doing it intentionally, or at least recognized our fear and unease and found it funny. What if this was... I woke up in darkness. Heart thudding, I sat up and felt around me. It seemed like I was still in my old bed, and the little bit of light coming through the window seemed to confirm this. But why was the room so dark? Had I turned off the light beside the bed? I didn't think so, but maybe when I was half asleep? Reaching out, I fumbled in the black air for the lamp switch for a moment before finding it. Twisting it, I started looking around the room, first in every direction and then more carefully. Was everything the same? Any sign that anyone had? I froze and lowered my eyes immediately, holding still for another moment before forcing myself to casually look for my phone. It was still in my pants pocket, and when I dug it out, I saw a missed text from Mark about 20 minutes earlier. "You awake?" I texted back carefully, trying to keep my hands from visibly shaking. "I am now. Sorry, I fell asleep. You okay?" Almost immediately, he responded. "Yeah, I think. I was starting to get sleepy, but I heard something a few minutes ago. Sounded like it came from the air vents. Quiet now, though. Maybe it was a dream." Shuddering, I risked a glance over my phone at the high vent on the far wall. The gleams of light I'd seen from inside that vent were still there, slightly brighter than before. Closer. I hadn't been wrong. It wasn't a dream. Something is in the vent. I think I can see its eyes. "Oh God, do you want me to come over?" I found myself shaking my head to an empty room before I shakily texted back. eyes darting now between my phone and the vent. It was still there. No, you couldn't in any way without me moving stuff and unlocking. I think we need to go now. I don't know what this is, but we need to go. Okay, how? I sucked in a breath as I heard the ductwork in the far wall groan as weight shifted up there. Was it closer? I wasn't sure. I was afraid to look too long in case it didn't know I saw it yet. Whatever we did, it had to be fast. Windows? Meet outside of cars? They're nailed shut now. I checked already tonight. We'd have to break them. I forced myself to take a deep breath. I was acting like a child, wasn't I? What if there wasn't anything up in the vent? Maybe I was seeing some reflection that had always been there I'd forgotten, or some piece of tape or insulation had gotten moved and was catching the light. Or at worst, maybe a mouse looking at me. As scared as I am, it was an old house after all. Another groan in the ductwork, and I saw the thing push forward this time, sliding up to within an inch of the vent grate itself. Oh God, it was my father's face, pressed and squeezed into an impossibly small rectangle, his eyes shiny and bulging from the compressed mass. Those eyes met mine, and I heard a wet, creaky sound that might have been a laugh. Go now. Me in the hall, and we go together. I leapt off the bed and slung the dresser aside, fighting with the knob for a second to unlock the door, sure was going to get caught from behind at any moment. Flinging open the door, I ran out into the hallway and headed for Mark's room. I was reaching for the handle just as it opened, Mark rushing out into me hard enough that we careened into the far hallway wall before righting ourselves and running down the hall toward the front door. Mom stepped out in front of us from their bedroom, grin wide on her face as her eyes flicked between us like a metronome. Look at my boys. Together again. Eager beavers. She giggled to herself before looking past us. Aren't you proud of them, honey? Our father's voice boomed behind us. Eum. We raised them right. Taught them to give back. Here they are, ready to help in the basement before the sun is even up. Spinning around, I saw him, naked and smeared with dust, grinning at us, his bruised-looking erection poking out from the nest of gray hair surrounding its base. When Mark grabbed my arm, I almost screamed. Turning to him, it struck me how much he looked like a kid, terrified eyes filling with tears. Looking for me to protect him, anger starting burning through my fear. Whatever this was, they were going to fucking let us go, even if I had to hurt them. Reaching down, I gave his hand a pat. Don't worry, Dumble. This will be okay. We're leaving. I glared at the thing that looked like our father. Now, I still wonder if I really thought that was true when I said it, or if it was just some comforting lie I was telling us both. Not that it really matters. There was no way I could understand what was about to happen. After all, standing in that hallway between the two of them, I'd never been more terrified or enraged in my life. Thought it was impossible to be more afraid. I was very, very wrong. I heard Mark scream at the same time. That pain flared through my entire body, dropping me to my knees. It had come from behind, so it had to be Mom. But what had she done? Gasping for breath, I turned toward Mark to see her over him, stabbing his neck with a hard jab of her fingertips. He let out another wail and crumpled into a ball on the floor, whether because he couldn't stand or just trying to avoid another attack. She must have been satisfied at his collapse, because she turned toward me. Her hand was still flat and pointed, and she raised her arm as though readying another impossibly fast strike at my neck or head. There was no smile on her face now, just the hard focus of a predator in the moments before a kill. A part of me feared that, but I was also distracted by how she had changed. Some of it was her speed and movement. She had a quick precision to her motions now that reminded me more of a mantis than an older woman. And then there was her skin. It looked waxy and slick in places, maybe all over, but there were also wisps of something trailing off her skin at various places. The first thought I had was that she'd walked through some cobwebs, but no, it was all over, thin, gauzy filaments clinging to her flesh like moss, shifting in the air with every sudden movement she made. I was still staring at her when she lowered her hand and spoke to me. Are you going to behave? Or do I have to hurt you like your brother? The mention of Mark broke me free from my terrified stupor enough to glare at her. Leave him alone. Just please let us leave. Our father's voice thundered out from above us. You aren't going anywhere but the basement. We've waited long enough. I looked up to see him standing over me, leering down with eyes that were pitiless and strange. Between us, his grotesque members still stabbed out at the air, and below them, what might be his weakest point. Gritting my teeth, I rammed my fist up into his testicles as hard as I could given the angle and the pain still flaring across my neck and shoulders. He grunted slightly, but didn't stagger or even cry out. And when I tried to hit him again, he kicked me hard enough in the ribs that I felt something give way as new agony filled my left side. Want back in there? That's not the way. I heard him and Mom cackling as I started sliding across the carpet. One of them had grabbed my legs, and when I looked around, I saw they were dragging Mark too. I wanted to kick them off, get Mark, and try to run again, but my limbs didn't want to work and I couldn't get any breath. I thought about talking to them again, but I knew there was no point. And Mark was so still, I was starting to wonder if she had knocked him out or even killed him. Maybe it was better if she had. We were almost to the basement, and Mark's eyes sprang open as he twisted onto his back and kicked hard with both of his feet, landing them both squarely in Mom's chest and sending her flying through the basement doorway and down the stairs. Dad roared in anger, and I tried to use the chance to kick him too, but he just yanked me sideways into the wall while reaching down to grab one of Mark's legs at the ankle. His angry yelling curdled into laughter as he pulled Mark closer and then stomped down on his knee, breaking his leg backward at the joint as Mark squealed and fell silent. Our father flung him down into the dark of the basement before grabbing me up again and following. I was screaming, of course, threatening to kill them, crying, begging, doing all the things to reset a world that had gone insane. I barely felt the rough slaps of the steps as I was drugged down there, or the cold concrete at the edge of the ruin they'd created. My eyes roved everywhere in the murky light of the basement, seeing more than I thought I would, more than I wanted. That part of the house had once been for storage. Boxes of decorations and old clothes, furniture that wasn't needed but hadn't been sold or given away. Keepsakes and abandoned hobbies and reminders of bits of past life largely shed but not completely forsaken. Now it was all destroyed. Most had been shredded and beaten into a rough ring around the middle of the room. But as you went toward the center, the scraps of cloth and paper, wood and metal, they all grew smaller and more fine. Mounds of dirt and trash littered the middle, pressed down by use and black with filth and moisture, and I knew right away what it was. A nest. My eyes landed on Mark again. Mom, bloodied but otherwise fine after her fall, had drug him into the center and was stripping away his clothes. I tried to scream at them again, but all that came out was a small, wheezing whine. Please, God, please let him be dead already. Our father came to stand over him as Mom receded to his head, stroking her youngest child's brow as her husband got down on all fours. Her skin was thick with that webby gauze now, almost like feathers in this dim light. She started to sing, still stroking Mark's hair like a loving mother as Dad's face split apart. It wasn't his entire head, just the lower half, the jaw protruding and splitting apart at the chin, spreading wide to reveal black gums and 2 rows of gray molars on each side. He paused a moment, looking up at me from beneath his bushy eyebrows, the same eyebrows Mark had always had, and he laughed at me, at us, at all of this, and then he bent down to take a bite. He went around Mark's entire body. He bit through half of one thigh, ate the other foot, ate both hands, and turned him over to tear off a buttock. These weren't savage or random attacks. He sniffed deeply before nearly every bite, seemed to consider, and sometimes he moved on to another spot. Other times he seemed satisfied, and there he buried his teeth into my brother's flesh. It was only when he was chewing thoughtfully on one of Mark's cheeks that his face began to run together again. And when he had swallowed the last, he looked at me again. This is all confusing for you, because all you know is taking, feeding on the life of the world around you, expecting everything, expecting us to just give and give and give until we're dried up and you have moved on. Even if I could have spoken then, I wouldn't have had any words. My mind was almost completely gone, barely able to do more than record what was happening to burn it into my heart. Snuffling, I only managed a small animal sound. G-U-H. Mom snickered as she stood up. She'd stayed at her station while Dad ate his part, and now she was stripping down herself, peeling off wet pajamas to reveal sagging breasts cocooned in more thick strands stained red with my brother's blood. I had the thought that he hadn't bled enough for all that had been taken, the desperate hope that it was because his heart had already stopped. We slow the blood. Dead meat is worthless. This was our mother. Dad had gone her old spot at Mark's head as she stood naked near what remained of his legs. You are both worth far more than that, at least to us. Your father has taken back from your brother, taken the places where the smell of his seed was strongest. He'll do the same to you. Me too, of course. She looked down at the bloody ruin of her youngest with a small, almost shy smile. But first I have to take my baby back. Spreading her legs wide, I saw the cleave between them grow, jagged yellow canines pushing out from between the lips and the broader fissure that ran up to her navel and lower back. Crouching low like a spider, she began pulling him into her even as our father pushed and helped the feeding along. I might have sat there, transfixed by that impossible horror, until it was my turn. But then something more terrible happened. Mark opened his eyes. He didn't make a sound, just stared at me. No, not stared. He looked at me, saw me, and begged me to look away, to get away, to let his last sight be me escaping hell. I don't remember getting up or making it out of the house without getting caught. Maybe I was just too fast, or they couldn't stop what they had started, or maybe they just didn't care if they stopped me. I know that I was over 100 miles away when I came back to myself, screaming and crying behind the wheel of my car. I was still stomping the pedal, but the engine was dead. I'd run out of gas. I got out and stumbled into the woods. My side was still killing me, but adrenaline was keeping me going, even if I was too confused and terrified to make a plan or do anything but hide from every passing car. That lasted for a few hours, I think, though I'm not sure. Then, one of the times I woke up from being asleep or unconscious, I could focus a bit more. Enough to know I couldn't stay there, that I needed to get to a hospital, that I wasn't safe out there alone. So I went back to the road and tried to flag down a car. No one would stop. Not that I blamed them given how I must have looked, but I had to get help, had to get farther away. Gritting my teeth, I hit my fist into my thigh in frustration. That's when I first realized I still had my cell phone in my pants. An hour later, I was in an ER trying to tell a believable lie about how I had fallen and tried to drive myself to a hospital but ran out of gas. I don't think anyone believed me, but between my concussion, broken ribs, and punctured lung, they weren't going to push it for the time being. I was there for 5 days, and the entire time I was conscious, I was terrified my parents were going to walk through the door. Every time they dosed me or I fell asleep from exhaustion, I'd wake up certain I was back in that basement again. On the 6th day, I checked myself out. The doctors and nurses didn't like it, but I didn't give them a choice. I wasn't safe there, and I had to be well hidden before I could really sleep and try to get my head together. There'd been no sign of my parents so far, and my phone had been silent except for a few friends from back home, but that didn't mean anything. They were still out there, and eventually they would come for me. So I spent the next 2 weeks moving between different motels, slowly migrating back to my hometown without actually going home. Once I was close enough, I spent a week watching my house for signs of them before I'd go near it. The next week I went back to work, retelling my original lie to them that I'd been hit by a car while visiting family the month before. I really was careful, and maybe it did actually help, I don't know. Looking back, it was stupid for me to try going back to my old life at all. But you have to understand, I was so adrift. Barely sane. I'd halfway hold it together at work and then cry in my car on the way home. I put locks on every door inside my house, but I still spent most nights sleeping in my locked closet with a shotgun next to me. And that was just the trauma of what I remembered. What was worse were the days when I thought I'd just gone crazy, imagined it all, or maybe hurt my parents or Mark in some kind of psychotic fit, imagining they were monsters and that they killed and ate him. Didn't that make more sense than what I remember to be true? And I hadn't heard from Mark or our parents since, had I? Maybe because they were all dead. I almost called them several times. Almost talked to the police once or twice. In the end, it was the purity and clarity of my memories, the potency of that poison in not only my mind but my heart, that convinced me that it was the world that had gone insane. Maybe that should have been comforting, but it wasn't. Instead of sleeping with my shotgun as my protector, I started cradling it like a lover. 6 months out, and I had already put the end of the barrel in my mouth twice. It was that second time that did it. Some remnant of that old anger came back. The thought that if I gave in, it was just them killing me slow. Me letting them win. Me letting Mark down. So instead, I went to a psychiatrist. The first session, I kept everything very vague and dishonest. Second and third, more honest, but no real details about some traumatic family incident in my recent past that was really bothering me. Fourth session, it wasn't because I trusted the guy that much more or even liked him, but I had to get it out before it killed me. So I told him about it. Everything I've told you so far. And he listened, only interrupting once or twice to clarify something. And when I was done, he studied me for better than a minute before clearing his throat. And all of this you just told me, you're being honest with me? This all happened just like you said? This isn't some joke or test or just a story? I shook my head, holding his gaze. I swear to God, it all happened. He nodded. Okay, well, thank you for sharing that with me. It's a lot to take in, of course, and we're just about out of time. Let me process it, and we'll discuss next time. Okay. I felt disappointment, but that was dwarfed by the release of telling it to someone else, even a practical stranger. Smiling, I stood up. I'm really not crazy. I just thank you for listening. He stood up and returned my smile. Sure, that's what I'm here for. See you soon. I was almost home when I saw the patrol car's lights behind me. I hadn't thought I was speeding, but maybe I hadn't been paying enough attention. When the deputy came to the window, I could tell something more was wrong. The doctor had called it in, said there was a strong chance I was a danger and that I needed emergency observation. I could have tried fighting the deputy, but what would have been the point? It would just let them keep me longer. So I went along, as calm and rational acting as I could manage, and by that night, I was in a psychiatric hospital. Past me would have been terrified of even the idea of that, but now, my pulse barely raised as a pleasant, elderly, orderly guided me down a series of halls to my room. Not too bad here, and the food's pretty good. You'll be fine. Bet you're out of here by the weekend. He turned to smile at me as he unlocked the door and gestured me in. Here's your room. Gertie will be by with dinner in about half an hour, and I'll see if I can rustle you up some books or magazines. I nodded. Okay, thanks. I may just sleep. He returned the nod and started to close the door. Well, keep your chin up. It'll turn out all right. His eyes brightened as he remembered something. Oh, and good news. While you were getting processed, we got a call. You've got visitors tomorrow. Jerking, I stared at him. What? Yeah, they told me right before I came to get you. Your parents are coming. That's it for today's creepy Reddit tales. Before we go, I just want to say a quick thanks to all of you for watching, liking, and sticking around. You guys keep this channel going, and I'll be back soon with more stories that'll make your skin crawl. Drop a comment if you've got your own spooky tale to share, and I'll see you in the next one.